Good afternoon, children.
Ma'am.
Good afternoon.
You had your lunch?
No.
You had your lunch or not?
No.
No, why? Only after biology class you will eat. It's already 2:11. Last period you had class?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
No lunch break. 12:40 to 1:10 was lunch break. Why you didn't have? So you should have your meals at regular timings. Lunch break is kept for that, no? You were free, no? 12:40 to 1:10?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So let's start with the fertilization process taking place in flowering plants. What is fertilization? Isha, what is meant by fertilization? Fertilization, class 8, class 9. You had learned all that.
Male and female.
Yes, Fizan.
Fusion of male and female gametes form a daughter.
To form what? Single celled what? Starting with Z.
Zygote.
Zygote. Isha, if you can't answer fertilization, last class I was explaining all that and you had learned in lower classes also. And without learning fertilization or without knowing what is meant by fertilization, how can you understand what I'm going to explain today? Fertilization is the process of fusion of male and female gametes to form a zygote. And we are going to discuss about fertilization in flowering plants. And where is the male gamete in a flowering plant present? Where is the male? Anybody can answer. Where are the male gametes present in a flower?
Stamen.
Specified.
Ovary.
Pollen grains, inside the pollen grains. Each pollen grain has got 2 male gametes. And pollen grains are found inside the anther. Anther is a part of stamen. And male gametes are here. It should fuse with a female gamete. Where are the female gametes?
Pistil.
No.
Which part of the pistil?
Over.
Somebody said the answer.
Ovary.
Inside the ovule. Where is ovule?
Ovaries.
Inside the ovary. Inside the ovary, ovule. Inside the ovule, there is a structure known as embryo sac. Ovary, ovule, embryo sac. Inside that, the egg cell is present. Inside embryo sac, not only egg cell, many other structures are also present, but male gamete, one of the male gametes I told, pollen grains. Each pollen grain has got 2 male gametes. One of the male gamete will fuse with the female gamete or egg cell and forms what?
Zygote.
Zygote. Zygote will develop into
Embryo.
yes, good. So we'll see the details. All those whose videos are on, let it be on. Okay, no need to turn it off when I share the screen. After the pollen grain lands on the stigma. So under pollination, we had learned transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma is known as pollination. I told you to remember pass, the mnemonic pass. Transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma. P for pollen, A for anther, S for stigma.
This slide is finished.
I know. I'm just repeating so that you'll get the continuity. Transfer of pollen grains. That was Eva, no? Thank you, Eva. Transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma. That is known as pollination. And once the pollen grains land on the stigma, it will germinate and form a pollen tube. The pollen tube will grow through the tissues of stigma and style and finally reaches the ovule. And inside the ovule, what is present? Embryo sac. Inside the ovule, embryo sac is there. Ovary, ovule, embryo sac. And inside the embryo sac, so here you can see the picture of an enlarged embryo sac. And inside the embryo sac, only one egg cell is present, only one female gamete. But many other structures are there. 3 antipodals, 2 synergids, and 2 polar nuclei at the center. So along with the egg cell, so the female gamete, only one female gamete. Remember, only one female gamete is present inside the embryo sac. And along with the egg cell, there are 2 synergids, 2 polar nuclei, and 3 antipodals. 3 antipodals, 2 polar nuclei, 2 synergids, and 1 egg cell. 1 egg cell, 2 synergids, 2 polar nuclei, and 3 antipodals. Where are they present? Inside the embryo sac. The 2 polar nuclei. So in the center, you can see 2 polar nuclei. They will fuse. And what do they form? A diploid secondary nucleus. They form a diploid secondary nucleus. Diploid and haploid, already I told you what is meant by that. What is meant by diploid? Anybody is remembering haploid, diploid? Nobody is remembering.
It will break into.
No. It's related to the sets of chromosomes present.
Sets of
chromosomes are paired.
Sets of
Chromosomes are paired.
Yes, exactly. In diploid condition, chromosomes are paired. Whereas in haploid condition, chromosomes are not paired, unpaired. Just one set. In diploid, 2 sets. Okay. So diploid, why it is becoming diploid? Because 2 polar nuclei are fusing. So it becomes diploid secondary nucleus. You should remember these names once again. Inside the ovary, ovule. Inside the ovule, 3 antipodals, 2 polar nuclei, 2 synergids, 1 egg cell. 1 egg cell, 2 synergids, 2 polar nuclei, and 3 antipodals. 3 antipodals, 2 polar nuclei, 2 synergids, and 1 egg cell. And what happens to the 2 polar nuclei? They will fuse together. And what do they form? A diploid secondary nucleus. Once again, diploid secondary nucleus. Polar nuclei becoming secondary nucleus. Diploid secondary nucleus. Remember, 2 nuclei. 2 of them are fusing and forming second nuclei. Diploid secondary nuclei. Sorry, nucleus. Hope you understood. Now, each pollen grain, I told you that each pollen grain is having 2 male gametes, so 2 male germ cells. Now let's see what will happen to these male gametes. One of the male gamete will fuse with the female gamete or egg cell and it will form a zygote. You call this process as syngamy, same as fertilization, syngamy. 2 male gametes are there. I told you in each pollen grain, 2 male gametes. 1 male gamete out of that will fuse with the egg cell or female gamete and it will form a zygote. Process is syngamy. Now, one more pollen grain is there that we need to know what will happen to that. The other male gamete will fuse with the diploid secondary nucleus. The other One male gamete will fuse with the egg, and the other male gamete. See, male gamete, two are there. One male gamete will fuse with the egg cell. It will fuse with the egg cell and it will form a zygote. Now, one more male gamete is there that will fuse with the polar nuclei or the diploid secondary nucleus, and they will form pen, expansion of pen, primary endosperm nucleus, primary endosperm nucleus, primary endosperm nucleus. It is triploid. Why it is triploid? Because one male gamete is fusing with
Ma'am,
diploid
in the triploid come 3 unfair.
secondary, I'll tell, secondary nucleus. So diploid stands for 2. Diploid plus 1. Triploid. Okay. So it becomes triploid. Yes, Visan?
Ma'am, it will be form that form 3, 2, 3.
Three sets of chromosomes will be there. 3 sets of chromosomes. Because already it is diploid. This diploid again fusing with the haploid male gamete. So 3 sets of chromosomes. So it is triploid. And this event is known as double fertilization. Double fertilization. So in flowering plants, double fertilization. Why double fertilization? Here 2 fertilizations are taking place. One is syngamy, and this one we call it as triple fusion, because 3 sets of or 3 nuclei are fusing. Triple fusion. 2 polar nuclei and 1 male gamete or diploid secondary nucleus, and the male gamete is fusing. So you call it as triple fusion. So first fertilization is syngamy, second one triple fusion, and 2 fertilizations are involved. So you call it as triple fusion because there are 2 fusions. And after the double fertilization, the zygote will develop into embryo, and pen which is formed will develop into endosperm, and embryo will further develop into a new plant, a new seedling upon germination. Pen, primary endosperm nucleus will form endosperm. And what is the function of endosperm? Providing nourishment to the developing embryo. It provides nourishment to the developing embryo. Children, I will write here again just to make you understand once again. All those who did not understand, listen carefully. So, 2 male gametes. 2 male gametes are there. Out of these 2 male gametes, one will fuse with one male gamete will fuse with what? Egg cell or female gamete. And what is formed? Zygote. Okay? Zygote develops into embryo. Now next. Other male gamete. 2 are there, no? Here the second male gamete fuses with what? Diploid secondary nucleus. Diploid secondary nucleus. And what does it form? Pen, primary endosperm nucleus. And it will develop into endosperm. Endosperm will provide nourishment to the growing embryo. See, this endosperm will provide nourishment to the growing embryo. And we call this process as double fertilization. Double means two. Double fertilization. Why do you call it as double fertilization? Why? What is the reason? Because it involves two fusions. So this is the first fusion. And this process you call as syngamy. Syngamy. And one more fusion, you call it as triple fusion. Triple fusion. Three sets of chromosomes are fusing, or three nuclei are involved. Diploid or two polar nuclei. Diploid secondary nucleus means two polar nuclei are fused there, plus one male gamete. So triple fusion. What happens as a result of triple fusion? Pen is formed. What is pen? Primary endosperm nucleus. And it will develop into what? Endosperm. What is the function of endosperm? To provide nourishment to the growing embryo. Have you understood, children?
Can I explain that it produces two male gametes, produces one male gamete, then that
Syngamy.
what they produces.
Pollen grain. Each pollen grain is having two male gametes. One male gamete out of two, one will fuse with female gamete or egg cell. This fusion, which you call as fertilization, you can say it is syngamy. And as a result of syngamy, zygote is formed. Zygote will develop into embryo. And the other male gamete, two male gametes are there. The second male gamete will fuse with diploid secondary nucleus. And what do you call the process? Triple fusion. And what is formed by triple fusion? Pen. What is the expansion? Primary endosperm nucleus. It will develop into endosperm. What is its function? To provide nourishment to the growing embryo. If I keep on explaining, I cannot assess whether you are listening or not, whether you have understood or not. Children, it's better I take a photo and post. Quickly recap, children. What did we learn? What happens once the pollen lands on the stigma? Gerlin, once the pollen has landed on the stigma, what is the next step? Don't take too much time. Quickly say. Gerlin went. Gerlin.
Germ.
Till now your video was perfect. Isha, what happens when the pollen grains land on the stigma?
It germinates to produce
form a
pollen tube.
Pollen tube. And pollen tube grows through the... Isha, continue. It will grow through what?
The tissues of stigma and style.
And reaches where?
Ovule.
Ovule. Okay. Elsa, inside the ovule, what is present? Which sac? In the sac?
Three antipodes.
Which sac is present inside the ovule?
Ovule.
Inside the ovule, which sac is present? Anybody?
Embryo sac.
Embryo sac. Inside the embryo sac, Elsa, continue. Inside the embryo sac, what are the structures present?
Three antipodes.
How many antipodals? How many antipodals? Three antipodals.
Two pollen grains.
Two polar nuclei, not pollen grains. Two polar nuclei. Then
One egg cell.
one egg cell and two synergids. Two synergids, three antipodals, two polar nuclei, one egg cell, just one male female gamete. Maria, repeat it. What your cousin said. Maria vanished. As soon as the question is asked, I don't know what is happening to the video. Swati. Repeat those cells present inside or structures present inside the embryo sac quickly.
3 antipodals,
3 antipodals,
2 polar nuclei,
2 polar nuclei,
2 synergids,
2 synergids,
1 egg cell.
1 egg cell. Okay, and then what happens to the 2 polar nuclei at the center so well? The 2 polar nuclei at the center, what they do? They will
mix together.
I showed like this, so mix. They fuse together and they form what? So well, don't break my heart, dear. How many times I repeated? What do they form?
I got
Wonderful. So there is no need of male gamete. Males are not needed to form a zygote.
2 male.
2 male. Yes, Shania, repeat it. What do they form? Loud up.
Diploid secondary.
Diploid secondary what? Diploid secondary nucleus. They will form the two, those who did not understand, now note it down. It will form a diploid secondary nucleus. Delvin, what do they form?
Diploid secondary nucleus.
Okay, diploid secondary nucleus. And each pollen grain has got 2 male gametes. What happens to the first male gamete? One of these male gametes. Siva, tell me, what happens to one of the male gametes?
One male gamete fused with the egg cell to form a zygote.
And form? And it
Zygote.
forms zygote. What do you call the process, Siva? S-Y-N.
Is
G-A-M-Y. What is that? Syngamy. Repeat.
syngamy.
Syngamy. So as she said, one of the male gametes will fuse with the egg cell and zygote will be formed. And the process is syngamy. And what about the second one, Angelo? What happens to the second male gamete?
Second male gamete will fuse to secondary diploid.
Diploid secondary nucleus, and it will form
endosperm.
What is that? With what do you write?
Pen.
Pen. What is the expansion for pen?
Primary endosperm
nucleus. Repeat again.
Primary endosperm nucleus.
Nucleus. What do you call this fusion?
Secondary.
What is the name of this fusion? Triple fusion. What is it?
Triple fusion.
Triple fusion. So second male gamete will fuse with diploid secondary nucleus and it will form a pen, primary endosperm nucleus, and the fusion is triple fusion. And since there are 2 fusions, which are those 2 fusions, Anuj? Name the 2 fusions. Yes, unmute. Which are the 2 fusions?
Ma'am, the triple fertilization.
Triple fusion, not triple fertilization. Triple fusion. First one, what Eva said? Starting with yes, yes, correct. Once again.
Ma'am, I can't see.
Syngamy. Okay. Syngamy and triple fusion. So 2 fusions are there, and thereby you call the process as Devasena. Because of 2 fusions, what do you call it?
Yes, ma'am.
What do you call this process? Since 2 fusions are there, we can call this type of fertilization as 2 fusions. So what is the name of the fertilization? Anybody? I have no energy at all, children.
Endosperm.
Wonderful. Double fertilization. 2 fusions. What is the difficulty in understanding? 2 fusions, so double fertilization. And once double fertilization is completed, we get zygote and pen. And what happens to zygote later? Anybody can answer. What happens to zygote later? Develops into
Embryo.
embryo. And what happens to pen? It will develop to what?
Endosperm.
Endosperm. What is the function of endosperm, children?
Nourishing the embryo.
Nourishing the
Embryo.
embryo. Very good. At least some of you are responding well. So let me take your attendance. Thank you, children. See you next class.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.